Hey everybody, this is Matt Palumbo and we're back with our special programming here. We're going to welcome Mark Justice, who is a candidate for Hudson School Board, and get a couple minutes to spend with Mark. And welcome to HCTV. Appreciate you coming in for this special program.
This is great.
So yeah, we'll start it off the same way, give you an opportunity just to, I know you're a longtime Hudson resident, very involved with the Science Olympiad, and share some of the things about yourself and your experiences here in Hudson.
Good deal. All right. So the wife and I have lived here for 22 years. Moved here because of actually proximity to the parks, but the schools, as with most Hudson residents, that was a big draw, right? We want to make sure our schools are great. I've got 3 daughters in our school system right now, ranging from 10th grade on down to 6th grade. So I'm living the life that the parents are living out there, right? Getting to softball games, getting to gymnastics practice, band practice, you name it. So very involved from that perspective. Personally, I'm an engineer, automation engineer, so I work with equipment. Specifically, I work with management teams and engineering teams and operations teams to try and find that happy medium to make sure that a system performs the way it's supposed to perform, and we get the best bang for your buck, if you will. So do a lot of that. Volunteering-wise, I spent a lot of time with the Hudson Science Olympiad team at the middle school. It's a great organization. Well led. There are almost 40 mentors that all are, parents that are contributing time and trying to help. And more importantly, though, there's 47 students, middle school students, that are all, working in this competitive environment with a STEM focus.
Right.
So it's
great.
A lot of
so
fun.
Let me ask you, because I've always wondered. So how does that? Do you have a schedule that you go around the state with the team, the Science Olympiad? Is there one big event, or what?
No.
Is it the Olympics, or is it we're playing the Suburban National or whatever? I was always curious about that.
Great question. So there's 23 different events, but so at a typical tournament, if you will, and there will be multiple tournaments leading up to regionals and then states, and then if you do well, then all the way up to nationals. So so it progresses up. But we'll participate in invitational tournaments. We'll be going out to Sylvania, out next to Toledo. We'll be going over to Pittsburgh. Solon's a big one, Mentor. So we'll go, schools host these tournaments, and so all of the students will load up on a bus. We'll head out to these locations early in the morning, and
that's great.
Spend the day competing in 1-hour time slots throughout the day.
That's wonderful. So. Well, let me know if I'm really good at scouting. So if you need some scouts to go out and check out the Solon team, somebody's working on the flux capacitor out there. How are we going to work against that? No,
it's very competitive. Yeah.
I bet it is.
Solon team,
I think that's wonderful. 23 event. That's amazing. That's great. And wow, kudos to you. And I know I've heard we have friends that have kids over at the middle school in that program, and that's great. It's great. You got it. That's what I love about Hudson. Right? It's not extracurricular. It's co-curricular. It's so important to the education of the kids. These other things that the kids are doing in their spare time.
Absolutely.
So what's your why? Why are you doing this? Public service, lots of time. You sound like you're a busy guy. You got a lot of things going on. Why you want to run for school board?
So I think most Hudsonites we're all busy, right? We're either running kids around, or we're managing businesses, or any number of things, right? And so what's my why? At some point you want to give back to the community, and education is important to me. I was the first person in my family to earn an engineering degree. I went out and earned my way in trades before I went back to college and got my degree. So I bring kind of a different perspective than a lot of people do in the traditional path. And I think that's important to have, especially at the upper management level, and that's where the board comes in, right? That's the role they play. And so, it just seems like a good fit. I'm, spending some time volunteering in the middle school. I'm interacting with the children. I see how they react to, the desire to learn, and that kind of feeds that want to give back in the education side of things. So it seems to me the best way that I can give back to my community and bring that perspective of a parent who's got skin in the game,
right,
and bring that perspective of a long-term resident who's also got skin in the game from that side of
Yep.
things.
So you're living it every day with the kids as we have. I mean, again, we had 6 that came through. We've got 1 left, and very, very blessed to have to move here to Hudson. Again, I looked at, much like with Matthew, I looked at, just as we threw this together, some of the literature that you had.
Yeah.
And one of the things I really struck me is, I just think a lot of distractions, Mark, for these kids right now. There's so many different things, whether it's the national news, the world news, these events that are, it's stressful to be a kid right now, and it breaks my heart sometimes when I think about it. Politics out of the schools. I think that's one of the things. It's a distraction for kids, and we talked about it with Matthew. Is let these teachers. So tell me a little bit about getting the politics out of the school, because I know that's been very big on your literature.
Absolutely, that's in my signature plate. Transparency in, politics out, and let the teachers teach. So what does that mean? Getting the politics out to me means. Our students deserve a learning environment that's free from all of those outside influences of the national politics, right? And our teachers deserve that as well. Mm-hmm. We need to make sure that we're managing the schools in such a way that we're not letting our personal politics infringe upon our teachers' ability to teach. And we need to make sure that that's not infringing upon the educational experience that our mm-hmm. students are getting. Mm-hmm. And so, I think it's important to have balance in everything, right? I think
Sure.
most people would agree balance is important. And, to that end, just trying to make sure that as part of that balance, and I'm not saying that you need to balance the politics, I'm saying let's rather than trying to balance the politics, let's try and pull the politics back. Mm-hmm. We should be running our schools, teaching our classes, enjoying the educational experience Sure. without having to worry about all of those outside influences. And to me, that's at the core of it.
Right. Because, there's so many, if people want to engage in politics, there's so many other opportunities for them all over the place, right? Just put on 24-hour news now, and people are
and it's so
arguing.
polarizing.
It's polarizing.
That's the catch. And our kids need to be, in my opinion, it'd be nice if we could insulate our kids from that polarization, mm-hmm. right? As adults, going door to door, there's, it's great because in this environment, right, you can talk to people and you can have long conversations mm-hmm. with people that, politically you don't agree with. But,
right.
But, boy, you get online or on a phone and now the polarizations go exponential.
Sure.
And so we've got that factor, whatever we can do to try and insulate our students from that,
mm-hmm.
I think would be grand for them in the long
run.
run.
And I think polarization, unfortunately, whether it's here or it's almost like it's an industry now, right? That people
yes.
are, again, with social media and things. So I think and it also kind of, I think, the whole politics out of the schools goes to what Matthew Clapper talked about, getting back to the basics. Because if you get the distractions, I don't care whether it's in your job, and you're trying to perfect something, if you get the distractions out, it gives you more time to focus on what your core vision is and getting back to the basics. So I'm all for it. I think that's a great point. I know Matthew talked a little bit about this, and again, it's in your literature, is the whole responsibility, fiscal responsibility and transparency. So
sure.
If you want to maybe expand on that a little bit for the folks.
Yeah, so it's key in any management situation to make sure that you're tracking your expenses, right, and that you're able to present how you're spending mm-hmm. those dollars to the upper management, if you will. I work a lot from a project standpoint, so I'm working with teams that are upper management, engineering, and operations, and each group brings their own perspective to each project, right? They all have what they want out of this project, and so a role that I often find myself in is being that person in the middle that's saying, okay, I understand your perspective, and I'm able to see each person's perspective, but also kind of keep your eyes on the prize of, at the end, you've got to have a return on the investment. You've got to mm-hmm. track your expenses so that are you hitting those key performance indicators? Was this a good path to go down? Do we want to do it again? Mm-hmm. And so from a transparency standpoint, if our residents, which are who we report to,
right.
if they're asking for specifics on how we're spending our dollars, then we need to be very, very forthcoming with that information. We need to make sure that that's easy for people to find. And if they have questions, we need to make sure that we're answering those questions well. And if we don't have the answers to give them, that's kind of an indicator that maybe we need to do a better job of tracking those expenses. And I think we're in that situation right now. We need to do a better job of tracking those expenses. We're asking taxpayers for additional funds, and Hudson will support our schools. We always have. But we need to make sure that we're give the residents the information that they're asking for so that they can feel that they can support additional funds.
Great. Talk a little bit, you mentioned a little bit, but obviously I think with your experience with the Science Olympiad, you get, and obviously having kids in the school, is you have interaction with your teachers. I think of the teachers in my life, Beverly Weber in 8th grade, or Tony Russ, and I remember those, and still today fall back on a lot of the lessons that my teachers and coaches also played in my life, and even now as I'm raising a family and providing that sort of thing. Talk a little bit about the support, because that's again another thing in your literature, the supporting of teachers, having that relationship, the direct line to the teachers from the board.
No, and that's that's great, because just last night I was thinking about when I was in Cleveland on East 72nd, my elementary teacher, Mr. Donaldson, I still remember him from a few years ago, right? So
just a few. That's
just
right.
a few. So we've got the teachers have a huge impact on our students, and we've got to respect that. We need to make sure that we're getting the tax dollars that we're asking for from the residents are being directed towards those teachers, so that we know that's where it's going to have the biggest impact on our students. We need to make sure that we're listening to the teachers, and I think that's key. We can't just listen to the people we want to listen to, and that kind of ties into this the politics polarization aspect. I very much reject that. I need to listen to both sides. I need to listen to everybody, and when I see that a certain group are not being listened to, it hurts, and I want to make sure I'll go out of my way actually to try and make sure that I'm listening to every group. I think everybody deserves a voice, and especially our teachers. We need to support them by listening to what their feedback is. If need be, redirect our course accordingly, or if not, at least make sure everybody feels that they've got skin in the game, right? I'm here. I've got 3 daughters in our system. I've got skin in the game to make sure our schools are supported, that in the long term that we're moving in the right direction. But I want to make sure that our teachers, that they feel that their voice is being heard as well.
Sure. I mean, and I think, and as we wrap it up, I think what I hear you saying, and similar to what Matthew said, is that it needs to be a cooperative effort, right? And that you have, I think it was on your literature, maybe it was Romano who's going to come in here later, but a different approach, right? So it's just, you have a different way of looking at things, and I think everybody in Hudson wants to support schools and willing. It's been shown time and time again financially, people will support it, but you just have a different way of, you want to come in and have a different approach on how to do that, really to be transparent and responsible.
I think I bring a perspective that's a little bit different than what we have on our current board, right? You mentioned the Hudson bubble earlier with Matthew Clapper, and actually I'm from a little bit outside of that, right? So I grew up in Cleveland. I've grown up all over Ohio and other states. So I've been here 22 years, and I love Hudson, and this is home. But I bring a perspective that I think is a little different than the average resident. I'm very educational focused. I see a strong need to drive in that direction, but I want to make sure that we're doing that in the right way, that we're spending our dollars wisely, that we're being transparent, that we're listening to parents and we're listening to teachers, and when it's all said and done, we need to make sure that our students are getting the experience that they deserve.
All right, sounds good. Mark Justice, good luck to you, Mark. Thanks
for
coming in.
Thanks, Matt.